The lion did not roar, and that silence was more terrifying than any scream. It was supposed to be a safe place. That was what Kelvin Adebayo believed. Private wildlife estate, trained guards, professional guides, electric fences stretching farther than the eye could see, a place where danger was controlled. Kelvin trusted systems. He trusted money. He trusted control. What he had never learned to trust was instinct. "Papa, can we go closer?" Zara's voice was bright, curious, untouched by fear. She was 8 years old, wearing a light yellow jacket that glowed under the African sun. Her excitement bounced ahead of her steps as she leaned over the wooden viewing platform, watching tall grass sway gently in the morning breeze. Kelvin stood beside her, one hand holding his phone, the other resting lazily on the railing. "Just for a minute," he said distractedly. "Stay where you are." He didn't look up. That was a mistake. The guide froze. He had been speaking about migration patterns when the words died in his throat. His eyes were locked on the grass. Not the distant grass. The near grass. "Sir," he whispered, "we need to move back." Kelvin frowned slightly, annoyed more than concerned. "Why?" he asked. The guide didn't answer, because the grass had parted. Golden eyes appeared, not rushing, not charging, watching, measuring. A full-grown lioness stepped into the open. No growl, no warning, just presence. The air changed instantly. Birds fell silent. The wind stopped. Even the guards forgot how to breathe. Zara laughed nervously at first. "Papa, she's really close." Kelvin finally looked up, and everything he believed in failed him at once. The lioness was less than 10 steps away. No fence between them. No glass. No illusion of safety. Just raw truth standing on 4 powerful legs. "Zara," Kelvin said slowly, his voice tight. "Come here." She took 1 step back, then stopped. Her small hand reached out and grabbed his shirt. "Papa, don't leave me." Those words struck harder than fear. Kelvin felt his chest tighten. He realized something terrifying in that moment. Every emergency plan he had paid for ended where his daughter stood. Behind them, guards raised their weapons instinctively. The guide hissed sharply. "Don't move. Don't provoke her." Someone whispered, "She hasn't roared." Someone else replied, "That's worse." Kelvin's heart hammered. He could feel it in his ears, in his throat, in the hand clutching his shirt. Zara was trembling now. "She's looking at me," she whispered. Kelvin stepped forward without thinking, not running, not shouting, just stepping, placing his body between his child and the lion. "Sir," a guard whispered urgently, "please step back." Kelvin didn't turn around. If he did, fear might take control. "I'm here," he said softly. Not to the guards, not to the lion, to his daughter. Zara pressed her face into his back. He could feel her breath, fast, uneven, and suddenly everything became clear. This was no longer about survival. It was about choice. The lioness tilted her head slightly. Her tail flicked once. Her eyes stayed on Kelvin. She took a slow step forward. Not aggressive, not curious, intentional. Time stretched thin. No one moved. No one dared to. Kelvin raised his hand slowly, palms open, not threatening, not weak, just present. "I won't move," he whispered. Sweat rolled down his temple. His legs shook, but he stood. Zara whispered from behind him, her voice barely sound. "Papa, promise me you won't run." Kelvin swallowed hard. "I promise." And for the first time in his life, he meant it more than any deal he had ever signed. The lioness stopped, close enough now that Kelvin could hear her breathing. Slow, deep, controlled. Her gaze dropped for a moment, from his eyes to the small arms wrapped tightly around his waist. And in that suspended moment, with danger breathing inches away, Kelvin understood something he had never learned from wealth or power. Some tests cannot be bought. They can only be faced. The lion took one more step forward. An entire world waited to see whether love was enough to hold its ground. No one moved. Not the guards. Not the guide. Not even the wind. The lioness stood there, close enough that the heat from her body mixed with the morning air. Her muscles rippled gently beneath her golden skin, each breath slow and deliberate, as if she alone controlled time. Kelvin felt Zara's grip tighten. "Papa," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why isn't she leaving?" Kelvin did not answer, because he didn't know. Behind them, a guard's finger trembled on the trigger. Another whispered urgently, "If she lunges, we shoot." The guide shook his head sharply. "No sudden moves," he murmured. "This is not aggression. This is assessment." Assessment. That word echoed inside Kelvin's mind. He realized something chilling. The lioness was not seeing him as prey. She was deciding. Kelvin shifted his weight slightly, careful not to startle her. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But instinct had already brought him here. So he did the opposite. He lowered his body just a little, making himself broader, more stable. Zara whimpered softly. "I'm cold," she said. Kelvin reached back, without looking, and squeezed her hand. "I'm here," he said quietly. "Stay with me." The lioness tilted her head. Her eyes locked onto Kelvin's. Not wild, not empty, focused. Her tail flicked once, brushing the grass. Then she took a step to the side. A subtle movement, but enough to make everyone gasp. The guide's breath caught. "She's circling," he whispered. Kelvin turned his body slowly, keeping Zara shielded, matching the lioness's movement. He did not break eye contact. The guards whispered anxiously behind them. "She's testing him." No human does this. Why isn't she attacking? Because fear had changed shape. Kelvin realized something terrifying and powerful at the same time. Fear was no longer about dying. Fear was about failing the small life holding on to him. Zara spoke again, her voice small but steady. "Papa, is she angry?" Kelvin swallowed. "No," he said softly. "She's thinking." Zara didn't understand, but the lioness did. The lioness stopped circling. She lowered herself slightly, not lying down, not crouching, observing. Her ears twitched at distant sounds, the rustle of leaves, the nervous shifting of boots behind Kelvin. Her attention flicked briefly toward the guards. Weapons, threat, then back to Kelvin. Slowly, Kelvin raised one hand, palm open. Not a gesture of dominance, not surrender, just presence. "I won't hurt you," he whispered. The guide's eyes widened. "Sir, don't speak." But it was too late. The sound of Kelvin's voice had already reached her. The lioness exhaled deeply, a sound low and steady. Not a growl, not a warning, a breath. She took one slow step forward. Zara gasped. Kelvin felt her press fully into his back. "Papa." "I've got you," he said firmly. His voice didn't shake. His legs did. The distance between them vanished. Now the lioness was close enough that Kelvin could see a faint scar along her shoulder. A survivor, a protector, a mother, maybe. Something shifted inside him. This was not a monster. This was power guided by instinct. Suddenly Zara spoke. Her voice was soft, unplanned, unfiltered. "She's beautiful." Everyone froze. The guide turned pale. The guard stiffened. Kelvin's heart nearly stopped. The lioness reacted instantly. Her head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes met Zara's. Kelvin felt a surge of panic. "Zara, don't." But the words were already out. For a long moment, nothing happened. The lioness stared. Zara stared back. No fear now, only wonder, and something else. Recognition. The lioness lowered her head slightly. Not bowing, not yielding, acknowledging. She took a step back, then another, slow, measured. Her tail flicked once more, and then she turned. The grass swallowed her form. Just like that. Gone. No one spoke. Not immediately. When the realization finally hit, knees buckled. One guard dropped to the ground, breathing hard. Another laughed shakily. The guide wiped sweat from his face. Kelvin stood frozen, still shielding Zara, still ready. "Papa," Zara whispered. "Did we win?" Kelvin closed his eyes. "No," he said softly. "We were spared." As they slowly backed away, Escorted carefully to safety, Kelvin felt something heavier than relief settle in his chest. A question. Why had the lioness chosen restraint? Why had she stepped back? And why did it feel like that moment was not finished with them yet? Far away, deep within the grass, the lioness paused. She turned her head once, as if remembering, as if marking. And Kelvin did not know it yet, but that silent decision would return to change his life in a way wealth never could. The silence did not end when they left the reserve. It followed them. The vehicle moved slowly along the dusty road, tires crunching over dry earth. No one spoke. Even the engine seemed quieter, as if the land itself was still listening. Zara sat beside Kelvin in the back seat, her small fingers wrapped tightly around his sleeve. "She didn't hurt us," Zara said softly, breaking the silence. She could have, but she didn't. Kelvin stared out the window. "Yes," he replied, "she could have." And that was what frightened him most. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Men trained for danger, armed and prepared, yet powerless minutes ago. One finally spoke. "I've never seen anything like that," he said. She chose not to act. Kelvin nodded faintly. "Why?" he asked. No one answered, because no one knew. That night, Kelvin couldn't sleep. The estate was quiet, guarded, secure, yet his mind refused to rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw golden eyes staring back at him, not with hunger, with judgment. He rose from bed and walked to Zara's room. She was awake, sitting upright, waiting. "Papa," she said, as if she had known he was coming. "Will she remember us?" Kelvin paused. "I don't know," he admitted. Zara hugged her knees. "I think she will." The next day, things began to change. Not dramatically. Subtly, Zara, once energetic and carefree, grew quiet. She stopped asking for toys, stopped demanding attention. Instead, she watched people, listened, thought. During breakfast, she pushed her plate away. "I don't want meat today," she said. Kelvin frowned slightly. "Why?" She shrugged. "I saw how strong she was. She didn't need to hurt us." Kelvin felt something twist in his chest. News of the encounter spread, not through headlines, through whispers. Staff spoke quietly. Drivers avoided eye contact. Even the guards carried a strange respect in their posture now. Fear mixed with something else. Humility. One evening, Kelvin overheard two workers talking near the courtyard. If that animal wanted them gone, they wouldn't be here. Maybe it wasn't about strength. Maybe it was about the child. Kelvin froze. The words settled heavily. That night, Zara woke screaming. Kelvin rushed in, heart pounding. She was shaking. She was standing there again. Zara cried. She wasn't angry. She was sad. Kelvin held her close. It was just a dream. But Zara shook her head. No, it felt real. The dreams continued, not just for Zara, for Kelvin too. He dreamed of standing unarmed in tall grass, hearing breathing behind him, feeling eyes judging his worth. Every morning, he woke up unsettled, stripped of certainty. Days later, Kelvin returned to the reserve. Alone, the guide looked surprised. "Sir, this isn't advisable." "I'm not here for thrills," Kelvin said. "I need answers." The guide studied him. "Animals don't give explanations." Kelvin nodded. "Neither do instincts, but they act with purpose." They stood near the same spot. The grass looked ordinary. Peaceful. Too peaceful. "She tested you," the guide finally said. She saw something she recognized. Kelvin turned. "Recognized what?" The guide hesitated. "Protection. Sacrifice." Kelvin's breath caught. Protection. Sacrifice. Two words he had never needed well to understand, but had rarely practiced. That evening, back home, Zara was waiting. She held a drawing, a lion, and a man standing in front of a smaller figure. "Is this us?" Kelvin asked. Zara nodded. "She trusted you." Kelvin's voice cracked. "I didn't earn it." Zara looked up. "Yes, you did." Then she added something that made his heart stop. "She trusted you, but she didn't trust the world around you. Kelvin swallowed. What do you mean? Zara's voice was calm. She saw the guns. Kelvin's chest tightened. He remembered the moment clearly. The lioness's eyes flicking toward the guards. The weapons. The tension. She stepped back because she chose peace, Zara continued. But next time, if someone smaller is alone. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Kelvin felt something heavy settle inside him. Responsibility. Not just as a father, as a man with power. That night, Kelvin made a decision. One that would anger people. One that would challenge his world. One that would test whether that silent moment in the grass had truly changed him. Or if it was just another story he would forget. He picked up his phone and began to undo things he once believed untouchable. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the estate in shades of gold and amber. The wind whispered through grass, and the silence that had once been terrifying now felt like a calm promise. Kelvin Adebayo stood beside his daughter, Zara, on the edge of the tall savanna grass where the lioness had first appeared. Everything had changed, not in wealth, not in power, not in business, but in understanding. For the first time, Kelvin knew that influence was measured not by control, but by compassion, not by fear, but by care. Zara looked up at him, her small hand gripping his tightly. "Papa, will she come back?" she asked. Kelvin smiled softly. "I think she will. And when she does, she'll see that we've learned what truly matters." She nodded, her eyes reflecting both wonder and relief. Weeks had passed since the incident. Kelvin had taken action unlike anything he had ever done before. Hunting leases had been canceled. The wildlife estate was now a sanctuary. Rangers patrolled the grounds, cameras were installed for observation and education, and programs were created to teach children the importance of protecting life, not exploiting it. It had caused a stir. Investors complained. Critics laughed. The media called it a costly gesture of sentimentality. But Kelvin did not flinch. He had faced a silent test that money could not buy, and he knew this was the only path forward. One morning, as the sun stretched its first rays over the estate, Kelvin and Zara returned to the spot where the lioness had appeared. The grass swayed lightly, the air warm, and all was still. Then, from the shadows, she emerged. The lioness moved gracefully, golden eyes calm, her tail flicking once as if acknowledging their presence. She didn't roar. She didn't charge. She simply observed. Kelvin's heart skipped a beat. He knelt, holding Zara close, and whispered, "Look, she trusts us again." Zara smiled. "She's proud of us, Papa." Kelvin realized in that moment that true courage was not in the strength of one's arms, but in the depth of one's heart. The lioness had tested him, judged him, and in the quietest, most profound way, taught him the value of restraint, responsibility, and love. Back at the estate, Kelvin had also begun sharing this lesson with others. Children from nearby villages were invited to observe and learn. Staff were encouraged not just to protect animals, but to understand them. Guests experienced the beauty of nature, the delicate balance of life, and the importance of humility. Every action Kelvin took now carried the weight of that lesson from the lioness, the reminder that life demanded respect, not dominance. Zara ran ahead, laughter echoing in the golden light, her yellow scarf fluttering. Kelvin followed, watching the innocence and joy of his daughter, feeling the heavy burden of responsibility lift slightly from his shoulders. He had learned that protection is not about fear or force. It is about love, presence, and the courage to make the right choice even when it is difficult. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kelvin sat with Zara on the wooden deck overlooking the sanctuary. She leaned against him and whispered, "Papa, the world feels different now." "Yes, it does," he said softly, "and it will feel different for everyone who learns from this." Kelvin looked out over the grass, where shadows danced and the wind carried the scent of earth and life. Somewhere in the distance, the lioness watched, silent, majestic, guardian of a lesson that would live long after this day. And in that quiet moment, Kelvin understood the truth the lioness had taught him. Strength without compassion is empty. True courage is measured not by the battles we win, but by the lives we protect, the love we give, and the humility we carry. With that, The story came full circle. Danger had visited. Fear had tested them, but love, wisdom, and courage had triumphed. The billionaire had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that life is precious, and protection is the greatest power one can wield.